Well, hello, folks, and today we're going to discuss the complicated cycle of narcissistic abuse. And in the background, you can see a photo from my recent trip to Donegal in Ireland. I did an Irish road trip, and I've taken various photos for my backdrops on these calls. So this is to harness some natural energy as we go along this journey. So for my regulars, you'll already know most of the things that I have to say on narcissism. So my aim is to just very swiftly recap and tie things together in this video because it's very easy to get caught in the cycle, folks, caught in the cycle, the cycle, the cycle. And the journey for people facing narcissism or dealing with it on a daily basis is to stop the cycle. How do you stop the cycle? Well, as my regulars will know, the only way to stop the cycle is to get out, folks. Um, Compromise with a narcissist is a wasted time. There's people that will tell you out there that you can compromise with a narcissist. I'm going to say that it's not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it because compromise with a narcissist is a temporary thing that will lead you to exactly the same place further down the line. And if you've been in that relationship with that narcissist, you'll already know this. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. Things will flare up. They'll flare up, folks. They'll get to the point you've had enough. Everybody's going to fire off and things will change momentarily. The narcissist will tell you things to placate you in the short term. And then suddenly and abruptly down the line, the same behavior repeats. And the reason that the same behavior repeats is because there's no empathy with a narcissist and they don't care about you. They'll pretend they do. They care about you just enough to keep you in their web, to get you to believe that there's a chance, there's hope for you, that you might have a say in this relationship, except you already know that you don't. If you're honest with yourself, you already know that that's not the case. It's not going to happen. Things are never going to change unless you change your mind. So this is it, the cycle of the narcissist. But the cycle for you, if you're the empath and the healer, the light worker that is usually attracted to my channel, then you will be under this misguided delusion that compromise is on the table. It isn't. You might get short-term fix. It's a bit like drinking Red Bull to stay awake. Yes, it will keep you awake in the short term, but it'll do a lot of damage to your body, and you will end up sleeping a lot when you finally go to sleep, and it will be damaging to you. It's exactly the same thing seeking compromise with a narcissist. So let's look at the worst case scenario. People that I've spoken to that have been on this journey sometimes spend tens tens of years to decades with narcissists. I've spoken to people that have spent 40 years in a relationship with a narcissist. And I can tell you that they told themselves every lie, every delusion. And at the end of it, the narcissist chews them up, spits them out. They find a younger version and they move on seamlessly without giving a second thought to the person that has had their life ruined. That's the end game for people that don't wake up to this, folks. The end game. And from there, it's very difficult getting your life back together if you've been caught in this endless cycle of narcissism, making excuses for them, finding compromise, believing what they told you, and then finally, them finding a new plaything and just getting rid of you off their radar. That's the worst case scenario, folks. Well, the worst case scenario is suicide, let's be honest. And if you've been stuck in a narcissistic relationship, you've probably at least considered that once, I would imagine. And before we get too dramatic about that, there's a big difference between suicidal thinking and actually suicidal doing. In fact, there's a big gap between there. And actually thinking suicidal thoughts is quite common. Because I discuss these things and I open up forums on this, and people know that I've written books on mental health and they talk to me about it, this is quite common. when I open this door, I find that most people that are going through any sort of issue in their life have at least considered suicide once or twice in their life. This is normal, folks. It's completely normal. But doing it, actually, the gap between thinking it, which is a temporary thought process, and actually doing it, well, there's a massive gap between that. So we make distinctions. It's quite common to feel suicidal on this path, to feel isolated, to feel like nobody has your back. That's a common thing for the empath. The empath is the shock absorber. Yeah, the person, you'll think that you're doing good for everyone else around you in the unit because you're finding compromise, or you're making excuses for narcissists in your realm, in your family, or in your friend circle. But ultimately, all you're doing is empowering them to continue really terrible behavior. I want that to sink in, folks, that you making excuses for narcissists to the rest of your friends and family is empowering them to stay narcissistic and to get away with all of that nonsense they've been getting away with for as long as you can remember. And that is the wake-up call. So we know the symptoms, folks. We know the symptoms. We know that round and round and round and round and round. And you will be telling yourself, maybe things will get better. They won't. They won't, folks. They'll get worse. They'll only get worse. So part of this journey, and I've talked about this again for my regulars, you'll already know this, but for anyone new, the journey of ending this cycle is to realize two really critical things. First thing is that the only thing that matters in your world is your boundaries and what you're prepared to tolerate. Here's a really important thing. You teach people how to treat you. Let that sink in, folks. Let it sink in. We all teach people how to treat us. If we're getting bad deals in life, then the only person that is responsible for that is you. For you and me, for me. So we each teach people how to treat us. And if we get bad treatment and if we tolerate it, we show everyone else around it that we're prepared to tolerate bad treatment. We're prepared to empower other people to treat us badly. So the only way to navigate out of this is to treat yourself the way that you would want your best friends to be treated. It's the gap. That is the gap of the healer and the empath, the light worker, is to treat yourself the same way that you would have your best friend be treated. And the odds are that you'll fire up and get really feisty if somebody pisses off your best mate, but you won't necessarily do it for yourself. And this is the journey of the light worker, of the healer, of the empath, to marry those two polarities until they're aligned. So, and the second thing is, and this is another thing that is a frequent flyer on this channel, is to own your dark side. We're not all sweetness and light, folks. We really aren't. There is a set of circumstances that will get you to do dark things, and maybe life hasn't put you in those positions yet. But we are all subject to our surroundings. There is always a set of life circumstances which will get you to discover aspects of your personality that you did not know existed. And the bottom line is you don't know who you are yet. And if you're stuck in a narcissistic relationship, then that's highlighted. It's highlighted. You need to get more in touch with your darker side, folks, and your darker side so that you can be a mirror to the narcissist and ultimately give them a taste of their own medicine. There's your litmus test. When you start treating a narcissist the way they treat you, then you'll find out who they really are, and you will discover who you are. You'll either step up or you'll step out. So when I say step out, that's probably suicide. Stepping up involves being comfortable with discomfort, fighting fire with fire occasionally. And if that doesn't work, in fact, when that doesn't work, if you're dealing with a narcissist, because it will always be when rather than if, because they have no empathy. There is no middle ground. It will always be when rather than if. When that happens, then you will be empowered enough to step out. And that only happens when you firstly decide that you are worth it, that you shouldn't be dealing with this nonsense. When you start treating yourself the same way that you would treat your best friend, then you are reaching the place that you need to reach to navigate your way out of this. So, folks, to finish this off, let's summarize what we've talked about. Narcissist's not going to change. A narcissist is always right. You're always wrong. You'll always be making excuses for them. And it will always take your energy and steal a piece of your soul for as long as you stay in that relationship. It's the first thing. The second thing is it only changes when you change, when you decide that you are worth more than this, that you shouldn't be put in this position of having to compromise and be wrong all the time and make excuses for the narcissist. And the only way that happens is to get in touch with your darker side, folks, and to start changing your own behaviors to give the narcissist a taste of their own medicine or get out or both. And there it is. There it is, very succinctly in a plate for you, how to navigate yourself out this cycle of narcissism. And folks, finally, if you're a regular here, thanks for coming back. Thanks for listening to this. Hopefully this has re-emphasized the messages that I've already given you. If you're new to the channel and you're still watching, then you're here for a reason. You're here to get steps and resources and helping hands to navigate yourself out of this very difficult space. And you will find those resources on this channel, folks. So if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do that with here. And if you want to explore the next part of the journey, get in touch with your shadow side, folks. That's where to go next.